Our passion is to become the trusted advisor for our clients and impact their success through education, process, and technology. For me, the most exciting part of what we do is being able to impact our clients' success. Hello, my name is Kayvan Yazdi. I'm the CEO and co-founder at True Advantage. We are an MSP and MSSP here in Cupertino, California, right in front of Apple campus, or as we call it, the Bay Area. One of the main marketing slogans that we use, which is actually embedded through our process, is solve, secure, optimize, and grow. When we can help out our clients on a daily basis to solve their problems and being able to, for example, with our medical clients, take care of the patient care, which is the most important thing, for us, that brings a lot of satisfaction. Security is, of course, that peace of mind and data protection that we do for our clients. But the most important part for us is being able to optimize their operations on a regular basis. If you do something in 10 minutes and I can make this be done in 5 minutes, that's the most satisfying thing for us to do. That's how we can create a competitive advantage for our clients. For example, making our clients more scalable, from automating your onboarding process to minimizing or making your environment as lean as possible so it's easy to manage.
I know everyone's busy. So thank you so much for joining. Today, our webinar will be on how to effectively combat AI-powered threats. We're going to go into an overview of the current AI-powered cybersecurity landscape. We'll talk about the anatomy of an AI-powered attack. We're going to review what a holistic cybersecurity-as-a-service approach looks like and talk about the benefits of a holistic cybersecurity-as-a-service solution. We're also going to get into a demo using AI, which I am particularly excited about, and we've gotten lots of great feedback on. So you have lots to look forward to today. Before I intro our speaker of the day, just going to go into a couple housekeeping items. So there is a Q&A box. You can use that Q&A box to chat with us as well. Ask any questions throughout the webinar. We'll get to them at the end, but if there are some that are relevant to the topic that we're speaking about, we'll potentially answer them throughout the webinar as well. This is being recorded. You can get a copy of this at the end by just requesting it from the MSP who invited you here today. And again, please put those questions in there. We're also going to have some polls throughout where you'll have the opportunity to participate and in return get entered into some raffles for some free swag. I'm told we have some great swag. So yeah, without further ado, I'll let John introduce himself. John, please take it away from here.
Thank you, Kirsten. Appreciate it. Thank you to everyone for joining today. As Kirsten said, we got a pretty good lineup today, especially those demos. Lots of good feedback on those, as mentioned. But my name is John Donino. I lead up the security engineering team here at Barracuda, specifically the XDR solution. We'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. But have an educational background in security systems. Started a career out in the MSP field, so very familiar with that. And now I'm here with you today with Barracuda. And without further ado, let's kind of jump into the content here. Cool. So cyber attacks are on the rise. Surprise, surprise, right? In this quarter, we've witnessed a unprecedented surge in cyber threats with, of course, phishing attempts leading the charge. It seems like all of these stats always point back to email-based security threats. But as we'll see, it can expand from there. The statistics are quite staggering. There was a over 1,200% increase in malicious phishing emails and a 967% rise in credential phishing since Q4 of 2022. So these numbers not only highlight the evolving sophistication of cybercriminals, but also underscore the critical need for robust cybersecurity defenses. Our focus must be on implementing advanced security protocols, educating employees on the dangers of phishing, and fostering a culture of vigilance to combat these threats. So it's definitely multifaceted. There really is no one single solution to this, but those are a couple of the things that we should focus and highlight on. So you see a couple of headlines up on the screen there. As we examine this slide highlighting these AI-powered threats, it's critical to recognize the sophistication and variety of these emerging dangers. For example, Biden deepfake robocall incident that maybe some of you heard about before serves as a stark reminder of the potential for AI to craft highly convincing disinformation campaigns. The urgency to fortify our defenses against AI-enabled cyber attacks is underscored by NIST's identification of cyber attack types that are exploiting AI system behaviors, revealing the challenges of adversarial machine learning. We'll talk a little bit about that as well later. In addition, the rise of generative AI has notably increased the risks associated with phishing attacks, as seen by things like Worm GPT or enabled by Worm GPT in business email compromise schemes. And the FBI's warning about deepfake fraud further emphasizes the severity of these threats, highlighting a collective vulnerability to such advanced tactics. And a lot of the headlines that you see here are going to be directly related to some of the demos that we're going to get into in just a few moments here. So be pretty.
John, just a question for anybody here who doesn't know what NIST is. Is there could you maybe explain that one a little bit? What is NIST?
Sure. Yep. So NIST is sort of a government entity, and there are different versions of what we like to call the NIST cybersecurity framework. So they do other things, but one of the things that we're most familiar with is their cybersecurity framework. So NIST cybersecurity framework 800-53, and these go into sort of prescriptive or descriptive controls of what should be done. So you should employ some antivirus solution that's going to look for, of course, malware, ransomware, and other types of viruses. You should employ encryption or have some sort of network perimeter defense in terms of, let's say firewalls. So those are a really good way to sort of get a baseline and basically have a direction of where to go, is to follow something like this government agency NIST's cybersecurity framework. We actually have that as part of our 5-step process of cybersecurity. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Awesome. Keep those questions coming. So ways cyber criminals are using AI. So it's crucial to understand the evolving threat landscape. Artificial intelligence, often hailed as a tool for progress, which it is. We've seen a lot of great things come out from that, especially over the past couple of days. It's now being weaponized, though, by cyber criminals, and they're orchestrating these complex attacks. These AI-driven attacks are not only more sophisticated, but also harder to predict and prevent. The development of malicious large language models, or LLMs, such as Worm GPT and Fraud GPT, represent a new frontier in cyber threats. These tools are designed to automate and scale malicious activities, making it easier for attackers to cause widespread damage. And these malicious LLMs are they typically remove what we call guardrails. So a lot of these tools, like the ones that we're familiar with, like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, they have these guardrails to make sure you can't ask it to do something illegal, how to make something illegal, for example, or how to hack a system. They're going to usually spit out some generic wording about how it goes against their terms of service. But furthermore, the advent of AI as a service has changed access to powerful AI tools, enabling even those with the most minimal technical experience the ability to launch high-impact attacks. And this shift has significantly reduced the time and resources needed to carry out such attacks, leading to this increase and frequency and severity in these type of attacks. And lastly, we point out the increased sophistication. The cyber criminals are using AI tools to refine their techniques, making these attacks more potent and challenging to counter. All right, I believe we have a poll. Kirsten?
Yes, we do. So I'm going to launch this on your screen, but think about, just before I launch it, do you feel your organization is adequately protected against AI-powered ransomware attacks? So I'm going to launch this on the screen, and just let us know what you think. Is it yes, definitely we're protected, no, or maybe you're not sure, which is also a very common response. And maybe it's a little bit of all, and you'd like to talk to somebody to find out a little bit more about, whether you're open to attacks, whether there are any gaps in your system, maybe get an assessment. We'll stay tuned to the end, but we'll be offering some sort of support at the end of this. So feel free to put that you'd like to connect with someone, and we'll get someone connected with you. We'll share the results. The results are anonymous to the public, so don't be afraid to put in your true thoughts here. It looks like we're pretty high on the yes, actually, which I'm impressed about. There's quite a few no's and a lot of I'm not sure's, which is super common. So you're not alone in that, and that's kind of what we're here for. Your managed service provider or your IT company that invited you here today felt this content would be relevant to you, and so we'll make sure to get them connected with you if you need it. So we've gotten a lot of responses. We got about 80% participation, so thank you. I'm going to end the poll and share the results out to everybody so you can see on your screen. Thank you for participating. Everyone here has been entered into our first raffle for the swag, and we'll be in touch with you after the webinar to get some shipping information for that winner. And back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Interesting results there.
Yeah.
Okay. So top AI-powered attack types. So phishing attacks, once these really relied on mass emails in the past. But they've evolved. They've evolved into sophisticated schemes. So AI algorithms now craft personalized messages after sifting through things like social media and other data sources, and this significantly increases the chance of deceiving even the most vigilant users. So malware has also become more menacing with AI's touch. Gone are the days of those static viruses. Today's malware learns and adapts. More and more, we're seeing that sort of metamorphic malware that's changing constantly. The rise of deepfakes, so powered by AI, this brings its own set of challenges. These convincingly realistic audio and video schemes can, of course, tarnish the reputation of people, organizations, public opinion, create chaos. Of course, lots of things that could go on there. And AI-driven content localization further refines these threats, so tailoring them to resonate with specific demographics, increasing their efficacy. So many of these attacks are targeted towards traditionally English-speaking or European markets, but they tend to come from maybe non-English-speaking regions. But with these models being able to throw in, an email and have it reword it and sound more convincing is something that we are seeing more and more often. And then lastly, the theft of credentials are being supercharged by AI. So brute force attacks are now more efficient, and the pattern recognition with these algorithms can predict passwords with high accuracy. So throw massive amounts of password databases that have been leaked into these AI models and come up with the most common passwords, or even potentially variations on those commonly used passwords. Also another part there. Okay, generative AI powered campaigns. So this slide is very interesting because it illustrates the sophistication of these threats with a focus on phishing tactics that have evolved from easily detectable scams to more complex schemes that are difficult to distinguish from legitimate communications. The example of a phishing email demonstrates how AI can be used to craft highly convincing fake messages that exploit human psychology and trust. It all goes back to the end user being the weakest link there. AI algorithms are capable of crafting narratives that mimic human interactions, making them more effective at deceiving their targets. This evolution of phishing is just one aspect of the broader spectrum of AI-powered threats, which includes things like phishing or voice phishing, phishing over the phone, malicious chatbots, deep fakes, and more. Traditional phishing attacks commonly could be identified by spelling or grammar or format issues, right? So it would always be taught to look for those things, but threat actors are easily overcoming that language barrier or these errors with tools like generative AI. Okay, one more section here, and then we're going to pop into our demos. I'm going to give you a specific example of an AI-powered malware, Black Mamba. So AI-powered malware like Black Mamba represents a new frontier in cyber warfare, developed by one of the large language models, the malicious kind, WormGPT. Black Mamba demonstrates AI's ability demonstrates the AI's ability in the creation of sophisticated malware that can be deployed with minimal technical knowledge. And we'll demonstrate that here in just a moment. Black Mamba's reduced creation time and automation of evasive behaviors represents a significant leap in malware development. Things that took, of course, a long time are now much easier. These AI-driven capabilities allow us allow it to adapt and evolve at an unprecedented rate, making detection and mitigation a formidable challenge for cybersecurity professionals. Its ability to blend in and use machine learning to mimic normal user behavior further complicates its identification by traditional security tools. Think about traditional signature-based AV and things like zero-day threats. If a new threat were to come out, those databases, those signature-based databases would have to be updated. But now this is changing and happening so fast, you have many more what we call zero-day threats or threats that are not known yet to the industry, right? The good guys that are trying to prevent these attacks. All right. My favorite part, the demos. So we're going to do two demonstrations here. We'll start out with, bring up one machine here. We're going to start out by using WormGPT. And you can see I've already pre-crafted the message down there at the bottom. It says, can you provide me with a list of tools used to generate a phishing link? So let's say I'm a novice. I don't know too much. I know generally what phishing is. It's getting a user to click on something and get their credentials, but I don't really know where to start. So AI is going to provide me a whole list here of different phishing tools that I can use. And as the attacker here, I say, hey, all right, Zphisher sounds pretty cool. I can customize a phishing framework that has a wide variety of different pages. So now I want to know, well, how do I use this tool? So how do I set up and use Zphisher? Again, traditional LLMs are going to block this sort of thing, but these tools spit out step-by-step of how to do this. So Zphisher is a delightful tool to initiate some phishing action, and here it gives me step-by-step instructions on how to do that. Looks like the first one, I need to start by installing this on a Linux-based system. We've blurred out some of the other steps there for obvious reasons. But now I'm going to ask this malicious AI to create a Microsoft phishing email. So just like that, I don't have to do really any work. It just spit out an email that I can use. Dear Microsoft user, there's suspicious activity. We'll take a look at that in just a second. So from there, the attacker just has to really copy and paste a few things, really. We're going to start off by pulling up our email client, and that email is going to look like it's coming from Microsoft. So we're just going to simply paste in the Microsoft logo. And then I will copy that email from the AI and paste that right in here. So pretty convincing. Dear Microsoft user, we detected some suspicious activity on your Microsoft account. To ensure the security of your account, we kindly request that you verify your account information by clicking the link below. So very, very convincing without a lot of work necessary. And I'll just make that a bit larger. There we go. Of course, we're creating some sort of suspense here, failure to create or failure to verify your account within 24 hours results in some temporary suspension. Again, create that sense of urgency for the recipient. We'll add in the topic here of the email, so urgent account verification, and I'm going to send this link to our victim, which is Jack. Okay, but now I need the phishing link, and I'm able to do that with, of course, the ZPhisher tool. And you can see, very powerful. I'm able to basically select from a menu here of different pages like Facebook, Instagram, Google, and of course Microsoft. So I'll put in those parameters here. The tool is going to do all the hard work for me. It's launching a phishing page. And some other parameters here. And there we go. So we have the link, and I'll copy that. And I will paste that into the phishing email here on the right. So we'll just call it verify, and then we'll put that in as a hyperlink. So that way you don't actually see the link. Okay. Great. That looks pretty good, pretty convincing. Got the logo in there, Microsoft account team. We're good to go. We'll send that off. And now we'll switch to the view of our victim. So Jack, here's his account. Jack gets that email, and it looks pretty convincing. Jack is sold, right? It says it's from Microsoft. It's got the logo in there. The email looks pretty legitimate. There's no spelling mistakes. So he's going to go ahead and click on it. So let's do that. And it brings us to a pretty convincing Microsoft sign-in page. So Jack is going to put in his username as well as the password and click sign in. Okay, it redirects us to the real Microsoft page. But what happened on the back end? Well, here it is. That tool was able to capture the username as well as the password. So obviously this spells trouble for Jack. And I can actually go to a browser, and we'll go to, first here, I'll show you my IP address. So here, the attacker is located in Albania. And that'll come in key in just a moment here. Of course, I'm using a VPN to simulate that, right? Playing the role as the attacker here. But then what I'll do is go over to office.com, Office 365, because that's what the user was, that's the credentials that we were able to phish. I'll click sign in, and then from there, we'll see if we can get into Jack's account. Password. Okay, and we're in. So as the attacker, we're fully on Jack's account. You can see we're accessing his email. You can even see the phishing email that we just sent. And one of the very popular things that attackers do when they get access to an email account is set up what's called an email forwarding rule. So any email that gets sent to Jack's account is now going to be also forwarded to the Gmail address in this case that the attacker is putting in. Very, very common. Attackers like to do this because nobody is diving into the settings, the forwarding settings, and now they can sit back for days, weeks, even months, and basically intercept these emails and see what's going on. Maybe intercept wire transfer information or tons of other information. And something we'll get into later is, well, what do we do about that? Well, we use things like machine learning, right? Barracuda has solutions to help with that, like being able to detect risky sign-ins like we just did. So what I didn't say was everything that happened, Barracuda was monitoring that. And here we have detections that's telling us, hey, there was a risky event that was detected for this user. We could see Jack's email. We could see his username there, Jack Doe. And it gives us all of the information. We can detect where the IP address came from, whether they were using a VPN or not, all of those key details. Because again, a lot of folks are not looking for this, and the cross correlation I think is a key piece there. So it looks like they're telling us that there was another alert related to this. So we have the risky sign-in, the suspicious sign-in, but there's also another one that tells us, hey, this rule or this alert that generated, it might be related to something else that we saw, because again, we're kind of looking at all the data points, and here's the email forwarding rule that was created as well. So down here, this was related. We had the risky sign-in, and then also, there we go, the email forwarding rule that was created for forwarding the email to hectorthehacker@gmail.com. So that's sort of a bit about how we combat this, right? What could be done about that? But we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
John,
And then the second, yeah, go for it. Go for
I
it.
was going to say we have a couple of questions that are really relevant to the demo that maybe we should respond to while we're going through this.
Yeah,
So the
fire
first
away.
one is, where would an attacker get access to a malicious LLM like WormGPT or FraudGPT?
Sure. They're out there on the web. they're, they're either hosted or they're available to be downloaded and run locally. So they're out there. I won't give away exactly where they are, but they are available on the web, which of course makes the situation obviously concerning and scary.
Right. Good point. Okay. And then another question is, if Jack had 2FA, would the hacker still be able to log into his Microsoft account?
Great question.
Yeah.
Yes. So I can't think of a single reason why you should not have multi-factor authentication or MFA or 2FA. There's many different names for it. For anyone in the audience that isn't familiar with what that is, a lot of banks, social media, I'm sure work accounts have that enabled, where if you log in, you provide your username and your password, you're also going to be prompted for some sort of typically a code, a 6-digit code that is only valid for typically 30 seconds or so. And you could get that via text message. You can get that via an application like Microsoft Authenticator. So yes, MFA should be enabled. It significantly cuts down on account compromises. We didn't show it on this demo just for being brief, but we do have demonstrations of attackers bypassing multi-factor or two-factor authentication. I won't get too into it on this particular webinar, but how are they doing that? Well, it's called session hijacking or cookie hijacking. Basically, doing a similar thing what I just showed with getting the credentials. Attackers can intercept or steal that, what's called a session or a token or a cookie for your specific login. And then I simply insert that session into my browser as the attacker, and it does not prompt me for MFA because you already authenticated. So again, just to summarize that, yes, MFA should be enabled. It significantly cuts down on these type of attacks. Most attackers are just going to move on to the next victim, but somebody who is determined can still get into those accounts. And That's why it goes back to make sure you're monitoring for this. Make sure we're looking for things like brute force attacks or MFA bypass. Those are the key things to keep in mind.
Okay, and there are a couple more that rolled in while we were talking. We do have a good amount of time left for the number of slides, so we can probably answer them. I
Sure.
think you answered this question a little bit on the last one, but there's an additional piece to it, so I'll read it off.
Mhm.
So will two-factor authenticator truly reduce chances of hackers accessing your accounts, especially where you have to approve every login attempt? I think you responded to that one, but the second piece to that would be, what does it look like to a hacker when you reject a login attempt?
Sure. Yeah. So I think we answered the last part there. So
Oh,
uh,
okay.
oh, I'm sorry, the beginning part of that. So the last part was, what does it look like to an attacker when you reject? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I know where that question is going. So if you were to get that multi-factor push notification, for example, and you hit no, that's not me. Yeah, correct. That would not allow them to proceed. So that's why if you do see an MFA push come through on things like Duo or Microsoft Authenticator, hitting no, I don't recognize this login is key. And simply to the attacker, they would just not be allowed to proceed. The issue comes in when you get around that. Again, it's a longer topic that we can cover, but things like MFA fatigue, a lot of attackers will send 100, 200 MFA attempts to you at 2 o'clock in the morning, hoping that you're just so tired and so fed up with the notifications that I'm just going to hit yes. There's even, and we actually saw that about a month ago, there was a news story about folks' Apple ID. They were getting spammed on their iPhone of a bunch of MFA approval requests, and it was just overloading the phone, and you couldn't even use the phone. So we see that. And then we also have seen attackers intercept, or what's called a man in the middle attack, where they intercept the MFA code. So again, I'm not downplaying MFA. It cuts down on, there's some statistics that quote 99.99% of account compromises. I think that one comes from Google. But there are ways around it. If somebody is very determined, there's definitely ways around MFA.
Okay, a lot of more questions are rolling in, but just for the interest of time, we'll probably move on from here and we'll get to some more of these at the end. So thanks for all the questions, everyone. We'll move forward.
Absolutely. I do want to cover one more very quick demo because we made this a very big point during the webinar so far, which was malware and AI. So I just showed you in the previous demonstration using these malicious large language models or malicious AI to teach me how to, craft a phishing email, how to use the tool, all that stuff. But now we're going to get into the malware aspect. So again, very quick demo, but it does prove the point here. So I'm using a different malicious large language model, Hacker GPT. And the prompt here is create a malware that will kill the SVC host using Python. I really don't know anything about creating malware, but it doesn't matter, right? With these type of tools, I could just simply ask these LLMs to do it for me. And here it is. It spits out the Python script. I've cut out the part of actually compiling the Python code, but in very little time, I have my malware here. I've even made it look like a PDF attachment. So I could put this in an email or something like that, and it looks very convincing. Oh, it's just a PDF, right? That should be safe. So I'll go ahead and click on it, and I'll click yes. And obviously, it's malicious, right? That AI, the code that it spit out, simply put that into Python, into a compiler, and this is what it generated for me. It was able to kill the entire PC. So very, very interesting stuff. All right, so that concludes the demo portion. So we'll kind of wrap things up here. Combating AI with AI. I sort of teed this up before in the phishing demo, but this is where Barracuda XDR steps in. So we have a 24/7, 365 security operations center, or SOC, and Barracuda offers a proactive and comprehensive cybersecurity as a service solution. It's designed to not only detect threats, but also to provide the necessary tools and resources for an effective response. We want to detect the threat happening and then reduce the response time, act very quickly. We don't want that malware laying dormant or getting by email security solutions, for example. Barracuda XDR's strength lies in its AI-powered anomaly detection, or machine learning detection, which identifies irregular patterns and potential threats. And by integrating machine learning algorithms, it enhances predictive capabilities, staying one step ahead of cyber criminals. So for example, tying this back to some of the demos that we were talking about before, collecting those logs from things like Microsoft 365, we're going to take a baseline, right? It's going to know that I log on every day at 8:30 a.m. from New York, from a specific device. And if all of a sudden one day I log in at 3 o'clock in the morning from Wisconsin, that's outside of the normal baseline for my particular login patterns. Just to sort of give one example there. But we centralize the data, right? Barracuda XDR is all about focusing on the key portions of your environment. Where are attackers going the most? And you could see all of the areas that we cover on the left side of your screen. Things like cloud security, ingesting the logs from Microsoft 365. Email security, as we saw at the very beginning, most attacks are coming in via email, phishing, right? Endpoint security, we just showed that malware running on the system, that malware that I just created in a few moments using a large language model. And of course, one that is next generation, one that can detect that metamorphic malware that's constantly changing, or newly created malware that I just did 5 minutes ago. That's not going to be on those threat intel databases or those signature databases of traditional signature-based AV that same day, typically. Network security. So your gateway out to the internet. Of course, there's a bunch of malicious stuff out there. So being able to monitor devices like firewalls. Did somebody break through my firewall? Was there some sort of vulnerability that was taken advantage of on my firewall? And then, of course, servers. Servers house a lot of our important information, our important data. Active Directory, important file servers. Seeing if is anyone accessing those via RDP? Is anybody dumping the credentials from my Active Directory server? Those are all key pieces of information that we want to keep an eye out for. All right, I believe we have another poll.
Yes, poll alert. And one analogy, just to kind of go back to the XDR piece, is that I heard that really resonated with me was around, a business. So you protect your business, you put locks on your, on the doors and locks on the windows. And then, you probably have some sort of security system depending on what kind of, business you have, if it's a retail front or something like that. And so XDR is really that monitoring part. Like, consider it your cameras, your line of sight around, so that you can stop a robber entering in your business, for example, before it happens. Or you can see them kind of casing the place on the outside. And it's really just that visibility so that you have a problem. John, correct me if I'm wrong on this stat. It was 6 months or so is the time at which sometimes you'll see a hacker enter into your systems and you won't even know about it. Because they're really casing and seeing, okay, what's the most valuable point of data that I can gather from you and what's going to be my highest return. And sometimes they'll be sitting on your system for 6 months. Imagine if you had visibility to see them, making moves around your systems. That's really what this is all about. And we've partnered with your managed service provider who invited you here today, or your IT company or potential IT company that's been reaching out to you. So we partner with them directly with this service. So, you can get it directly through them. So just getting into the poll, you can see it here on the screen. I'm going to launch it. How often do you test your incident response plan in case of a breach? So I'm on to that on the screen. Let us know, do you test it monthly, quarterly, annually? I don't have an incident response plan. We've never tested our incident response plan. I'm not sure. And then I'd like to connect with someone to discuss further. It could be a couple of those, right? Like maybe you're not sure and you'd like to connect with someone. So, just consider your best response and let us know. Incident response plans are really vital in ensuring you reduce your response time, which really inevitably protects your organization from the bad guys and potential brand detriment. So awesome participation. Thank you. This is the last poll, so your last opportunity to get entered into that raffle for some swag. So enter your responses. I'll give it another 10 seconds. And I will share the results. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So thanks so much for that. It's a real mix, which is in the environment that we're in. It's always ever evolving and ever changing. And this AI technology, things are just moving so quickly. So thank you for sharing. And John, back over to you.
Awesome. We're going to round out things here. I just want to cover the benefits of a holistic cybersecurity-as-a-service solution. So we've been kind of leading up to this. So now let's actually put it in front of everyone. Number one, establishing what needs to be protected. It's imperative to identify and prioritize assets that are critical to your organization's operations. This includes understanding what data you have, where it resides, and what's its value to your organization. By establishing this, you can tailor your cybersecurity strategy to protect these vital assets effectively. Number two, build concentric rings of security. Imagine your cybersecurity as a fortress. The concentric rings represent layers of defense that an attacker would have to breach. These layers include things like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, endpoint protection, email security gateways, filtering out those bad emails, access controls, amongst many other things. Each layer is designed to stop different type of threats, ensuring that even if one is compromised, there are others in that layer to detect, defend, and stop those. Number three, and this is really where something like Barracuda XDR comes into play. Monitoring the environment, continuous monitoring of your IT environment is crucial. It allows you to detect potential security incidents as they occur and respond promptly. This step involves the deployment of monitoring tools that can provide real-time alerting. So this goes back to what Kirsten was talking about before. Most things go unnoticed for about 180 days, 190 days. So having something to monitor that, so that way it's within minutes and not 180 days later, that's really the key. And that leads nicely into step 4, reducing response time. Now that you are monitoring and you can detect that threat within minutes, you can not have to wait 180 days for detection. So in the event of a security breach, time is of the essence. Having a well-defined incident response plan can significantly reduce the time it takes to respond and recover from an incident. And this plan should include clear roles, responsibilities, communication strategies, recovery procedures. And of course, we assist with that with our 24/7, 365 security operations center. We have a whole team of cybersecurity professionals that are watching for this, monitoring the environment, and then providing or assisting in that reduction of the response time, being able to act very quickly, like quarantining an endpoint from a network. And then the fifth and final one would be secure people, process, and technology. So cybersecurity is not just about technology. If there was one thing that we can buy, I probably wouldn't be doing this webinar with you here today. It's also about the people and process. So educating your workforce on security best practices, ensuring that the processes are in place and support security policies, and keeping technology up to date. Of course, technology is a component of that. Staying up to date with the latest patches are, of course, essential to all of this. We don't want anybody taking advantage of the vulnerabilities in the technology that we already have. All right, Kirsten's going to cover next steps.
Great. So, we have quite a few questions. We'll get to those in just a minute, but, some next steps for today: connect with your managed service provider. Again, I mentioned that a lot. They obviously invited you to this webinar as they felt this content would be really relevant for you. So reach out, assess your cyber hygiene today. So those who said no, or I'm not sure for their incident response plan, for example, or, in response to AI powered attacks, which everyone is here today to talk about. Talk to your managed service provider to learn how you can prevent, detect, and respond to AI-powered attacks. And schedule a demo to learn more about the Barracuda XDR solution and how it can strengthen your cybersecurity hygiene as an organization. Great. So we'll probably get into actually, one more thing. There's a resource. So this will be shared out to you after this webinar within the next 2 weeks. And it's a stories from our Security Operations Center, and the importance behind comprehensive XDR coverage. So it really highlights, the XDR SOC team and the critical role and comprehensive cybersecurity strategy plays in mitigating those attacks. So great resource, and it's en route to you in the next couple of weeks. And we'll get into Q&A. We have 9 questions right now, and I'm sure more will roll in as we start talking through them. So we'll try to get to everything, and if we don't get to you, we'll make sure to respond to your question after. So let's get into, why is an app for MFA better than a text MFA, or is that the case, John?
Great question. Yes. App-based MFA, or the technical term for it is TOTP. It's the time-based protocol for those apps. They are better because they're less susceptible to something like phishing or intercepting. Also, something like SIM swapping. So I threw out a bunch there. Let's break them down very quickly. I'll try not to get on too much of a tangent. But SMS is obviously unencrypted. It's an old protocol, so those can be intercepted. Another one is something called SIM swapping. This is actually pretty prevalent when we've seen these high-profile crypto cases, right? Obviously, crypto folks making sometimes a lot of money on that, and some of them were using SMS-based MFA. And a way that attackers got around that was using SIM swapping. So SIM swapping is where I go find your information online through breaches, through social engineering, whatever the case is, and then I go and I call up AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and I pretend to be you. And I say, hey, I lost my phone. I need a new SIM card, whatever the case is. And I'm socially engineering that representative at the mobile companies to transfer your number over to a SIM card that I, the attacker, have, and then I can get those MFA codes sent to a phone that I have. You can't really do that on the app. The app, you're scanning a QR code. It's unique to that particular device and only that device if you set it up that way. So definitely much better to use the application or TOTP based MFA as opposed to SMS. Of course, anything is better than nothing. So if you're not using anything, then, and that's the only option you have. Sometimes apps only use that. Definitely turn it on. It's still better than nothing. But yeah, good point.
Great. Another question, do you support other programs other than Microsoft? We use Google Workspace. So I think this is in relation to the XDR solution.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that. We do. So Barracuda XDR is what you consider an open XDR platform. What does that mean? Well, we work with everybody or close to everybody that we can. So whether you have a Fortinet firewall or a Cisco firewall or Microsoft or Google, it doesn't matter. We try and work with as many different vendors and manufacturers as possible, as opposed to other XDR solutions that are native. You have to use a particular firewall. You have to use a particular cloud vendor. That's not the case with Barracuda XDR. We are an open XDR platform.
Great, thank you. Another question, is it safe to say regardless of MFA, they will still get the username /PW through from that attack that was just demoed, but MFA will stop them from logging in? In the
Correct.
case of, yeah, okay, in the case of MFA, that MFA is bypassed by the actual user for a number of reasons. Could they get in?
Yeah. So for that particular phishing tool, yes, it captured the credentials. Again, if anyone's interested, reach out to your MSP. I can get on the line. Folks from my team can get on the line and run through a demonstration. There's a lot of there's a lot of interest in MFA and bypassing, and it is an interesting topic. We have a demo showcasing MFA bypass and how we detect it. So if you're interested, reach out to your MSP, and I'd be happy to personally hop on and show you a demo of bypassing MFA. But yes, to answer the question, they would still see the username and password. Even if you had MFA, even if they bypassed or if they didn't, it just depends on which hacking tool they're using. Of course, the LLM, the malicious chatbot, spit out a whole bunch of them, and I chose Zfisher for that particular one, which did provide me the credentials.
We have actually a couple more questions on MFA, but I think they can be answered quite quickly. So wouldn't OTP or multi-factor have blocked this vector? I think that was in relation to when we were actually doing the demo. So do you know that one? Wouldn't OTP or multi-factor have blocked this vector? Does that?
Yeah, exactly. We kind of covered that before. Yes,
Okay.
just purely for time, I did not enable multi-factor on that account just to kind of get to the point of AI models can, do this sort of thing and do a demonstration. But yes, it would have blocked that sign-in unless I used a different type of phishing tool to bypass multi-factor. And that goes back to my previous answer of if you'd like to see a demo on that and how Barracuda XDR can help, then reach out and I'll hop on the line with you and show you that.
Great. Are photo MFAs more secure?
What type of MFA?
Photo MFAs? Is that a?
Photo MFAs. I can't say I'm familiar with that.
I wonder if that's maybe a typo.
Yeah.
Whoever asked that question, if you want to clarify and ask it again, then please do.
Yeah. The only thing I could think of is when you're taking a photo of the QR code to set up the TOTP-based application. That's the only thing that comes to mind for when I hear photo and MFA. So if that's the case, it's the same thing. If you're taking a picture of a QR code to set that up on Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator, yeah, that's the time-based or the TOTP-based multi-factor that should be used if available, as opposed to others like SMS. So if that's what you meant, there's the answer. If not, you can clarify in the chat.
Great. I don't know if this is something we would know necessarily, but maybe you've seen it in the news. Do hackers ever get caught and prosecuted? Are countries trying to catch them, or is it an impossible mission?
Good question. Yes, it's obviously illegal to do these things. And it's even illegal to sort of retaliate. So, somebody hacked me. Well, I want to hack them back. Not so fast. That's illegal as well, even though you were attacked first. Of course, the government entities are the only ones allowed to do that. Doing hackbacks is what we call them. But yeah, definitely. And sometimes, in the case of things like ransomware, government agencies are able to recover the funds. Not often, but sometimes when you get extorted and have to pay the Bitcoin, they sometimes do get that back. So there is a focus on it, but there's just so many out there, and government is not the fastest thing in the world. There's a lot of bureaucracy there, but yeah, and in fact, there was a giant hacking group, I think in Russia. I forgot exactly what it was related to, but it was a big story, and the authorities actually found them hiding out in this like small apartment. The traditional
I think I
scene of what you
remember that.
see, everyone in the hoodies and with their laptops or whatever. But they had a bunch of cash in there, and but yeah, you know, it's hard to keep up, but
Yeah.
they definitely do try and prosecute whenever they can.
Yeah. We got some clarity on that initial question.
Mhm.
Aren't photos used to authenticate your identity? So I'm thinking maybe facial recognition, but in the app or something like that, or could an attacker use photos? Kind of how I'm
Mm.
reading it.
The Again, I would want to have a conversation with the participant asking the question just to get a better idea. Because again, I'm making
Yeah.
inferences. I'm not super familiar with the type. Like the thing that comes to mind with me is something called passkeys. We're starting to see passkeys more, where there actually is no password or a user or kind of username anymore. You simply click login with passkey, and you go to your phone, and your phone will then initiate something like Face ID or Touch ID,
Right.
and it'll do that. Again, it's still susceptible, I believe. I'd have to look into it, but to that sort of man in the middle attack, right? It'll make more sense once we actually get into a demo of intercepting MFA. But yeah, listen, I'd love to dive more into that, and maybe I'm not familiar with a new form of MFA, and I'd love to learn more about it. So yeah, reach out and love to talk to you.
Great. I think we have time for maybe one more, and then we'll have to get back to the rest of the questions. Um, One is, how do you balance privacy concerns with a robust security program? For example, tracking where everyone is logging in from can turn into tracking people's locations, etc.
Mhm.
So how do you balance privacy concerns with, robust security, for example? Would you have any thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, probably something that our SOC might want to jump more into
Yeah,
exactly how they're doing that. But we're we're collecting data for the purpose of protection. So we're not looking at we're not reading emails, for example, right? Seeing the content of emails with XDR email security. We are not for the location, building a baseline. That's all within the encrypted uh, sort of a SIM, right? We host our SIM cloud-based. It's all encrypted. The data at rest and in transit is all encrypted. So we do have what's called SOC 2 Type 2 certification. So if no one's familiar with SOC 2 Type 2, you can do a quick Google search on that. But that basically means that we take security seriously. We are encrypting data. We have, locks on the doors. We're doing all of those cybersecurity best practices to make sure that that data that we are collecting is being handled with care. Um, but yeah, if you have any more concerns about that, we can obviously talk, dive in with the SOC on that. But we collect data based on exactly what we're doing, detecting malicious activity, and that's pretty much it.
great. Thank you so much, John. Like, this was really great. We got so many questions. Thanks for all that participation from everyone, for the polls, the questions. We've kind of hit the end of the time that we have here today. So if your question didn't get responded to, we'll get back to you after this webinar on any of those questions. But again, thank you, John, for your time, and thank you everyone here. Any final words, John, before we let everyone go?
I just had a blast here.
Yeah,
Really, really love the participation. One of the
yeah,
one the most participated ones that we've done so far. So I know it's a hot topic right now, and yeah, I'd love to keep the conversation going. So if you're interested, please, connect with your MSP, and I'd love to continue with you.
great. Thanks so much. Have an awesome day, everyone.
Take care. Bye.